Hi and welcome to this brand new video. I'm really very glad that you tuned in once again because today it's all about how I oil my Clarineau. This is about any kind of Clarineau. I'll show you more about that in a moment. Maybe you should first really know why I even have to oil my Clarineau. And it's actually really simple. Just a brief aside, our Clarineaus, like any other wooden recorder, are made of wood. And maybe not always the same wood, but it's still wood, and as we all know, wood comes from trees. When a tree is still alive, it can protect itself naturally, but once it's been harvested and turned into an instrument, it obviously can't do that anymore, so we have to take care of its upkeep. And that's what today is about. Like I said earlier, this video applies to any kind of Clarineau, so I'll just show you the different types. First up is the pocket Clarineau. It doesn't have any keys, which can be really handy sometimes, especially when oiling it. I'll say a little more about that a bit later on. After that, we've got the typical 2-key Clarineau, the typical 3-key Clarineau, and the F alto Clarineau listed here in that order. And since that's not all, right here we have rosewood, and over there you can also quite clearly make out grenadilla, very clearly indeed, as you can see. So the video I'm doing now applies to these two types of Clarineaus too. And also for the so-called chalumeaux. So no matter which particular kind of Clarineau or chalumeau you have at home, you can apply this video and everything I'm about to show to any of them. Before I show you how to oil your Clarineau properly, I'll first tell you what we actually need for it. And for that you need first of all just ordinary kewa, kitchen roll, then a cleaning rod depending on the size. So the big cleaning rod is of course intended for the F alt Clarineau. The smaller rods are for any other kind of Clarineau. Then a little dish where we'll put our oil in a moment. I'll say something about the oil in a bit as well. And then either a lash brush or just a small little brush. They're cosmetic items, so you can get them at pretty much any drugstore, really quite easily and without much trouble, very conveniently. This lash brush is really good for oiling the tone holes. I'll show you that in a little bit, in more detail. And then you'll need your instrument, the one you want to oil. As for the oil itself, we always use sweet almond oil to oil the Clarineaus both inside and out. The simple advantage is that sweet almond oil doesn't solidify. If you now have a Clarineau with keys and actually have all kinds of Clarineaus come with keys except the pocket Clarineau, that's just how it is. We never oil the key itself, only the wood really, always. That's very important, but if a bit of oil does get on the key or the pad with sweet almond oil, it wouldn't exactly be the end of the world because it doesn't harden, so it's really not a major problem. If you use an oil that hardens, it'll damage the key or make it stop working properly if the oil gets on it, so it simply won't operate correctly anymore at all, frankly. That's why we prefer sweet almond oil. Oops. But how do I actually oil my Clarineau? And here's the interesting part. It's super simple. You can use a kitchen towel to wipe the Clarineau on the outside later and also to oil it from the inside as well. To oil it from the inside, we'll grab the swab and I've already got a little something ready right here. I split a piece of chewer into 4 and then folded one of the quarters over itself like this, keeping the fold neat and relatively compact. I'll show that again up close in a moment so you can clearly see how I can just get it through the wand here now. Okay, that can be a bit fiddly at first, but it definitely still works well. It's important not to make it too thin because it might slip out when you oil the inner bore. But if you manage that, it'll pretty much look like this, sort of like a rather small loop maybe. Then we put a little oil on the plate. Once the oil's on the plate, you pick up the squeegee and the tsewa and then dip the tsewa once on each side into the oil, just a single quick dip per side, moving it briefly and evenly on each side to coat it lightly. And now, in theory, it really doesn't matter at all whether you start from the bottom or from the top. If I put this in here now, it pretty easily starts to rotate. And I push it all the way through like this until there's almost no rod left here, really. Pull it out again, then I can go in here at the top once more and twist it a bit slowly and turning it gently as needed, just a bit more still, right there. If you go top to bottom, you can, for example, simply push the rod down through here from above and then easily pull it out down here without trouble. Then you'll probably have quite a lot of oil down here. You can simply wipe that off right away with ease. That will be put onto the outer surface in a moment. We'll take care of that shortly. It's also important that we oil the core of the tenon in here thoroughly as well, very carefully. That's very important so that no water soaks in. I'll also show a close-up of that in just a moment. For that, you can either take another piece of tsewa and carefully dip it a little into oil, ensuring it's slightly moistened before you use it. And then you can use the small piece of tsewa in here to oil the cone heart very thoroughly indeed. Or if you're like, I've got a small brush at home, then by all means you can of course use that brush and carefully apply a generous amount of oil onto the cone heart right here, very easily indeed. Then we'll of course oil the tone holes carefully and thoroughly. For that we simply grab the mascara brush, dip it just a little bit into the oil, and then moving slowly and deliberately with gentle controlled motions, we can oil each hole one by one as we go along step by step in sequence. Then you'll automatically have a little bit of oil on the outside again. If that's not enough for you, you can also simply use the cloth that you use for the joint, just like before. You can also run it along the outside here again, and like I said, it's important, we only oil the wood, not the keys. Of course you can't always avoid getting a bit on them, but you really shouldn't just stand there and be actively rubbing oil into the keys, seriously. Into the keyholes, and then you can just use your fingers to gently smear the oil around the outside here very gently and lightly. After that, you can, if you like, just wipe them a bit from the outside with a kitchen towel and then set them gently aside to dry for a short period of time. Give them a moment. And if any of you are now wondering, okay, how do I even know that I need to oil my Clarineau, or when should I oil it at all? Here's a quick explanation. If the wood surface, especially on the inside, feels particularly dry and grey, or if it just looks dry and grey, then you should definitely oil your Clarineau. And basically, oil never really hurts your recorder at all, really, as long as you don't completely drown it in oil. And if anyone's wondering now, hey, how do I even get rid of this? Here's a quick little explanation for you right now. Like I said before, sweet almond oil isn't self-igniting at all, so you don't have to worry about it suddenly catching fire. So you can just chuck it in your regular household bin, or if it's only little bits, you could technically flush them down the toilet, though you wouldn't normally flush kitchen roll in most cases anyway. But like I said, you really don't need to worry that it'll catch fire. You can just throw it away like normal, and any oil you didn't use, you can just pour back into the bottle you got it from. Then you can just use it again normally next time. And maybe a quick explanation, the Zapfenherz is the part where the mouthpiece goes in later. I'll quickly show you again what the individual valves look like. I mean, you probably know that, but I've got here, for example, I'll cut to a shot now, a small clarinet key that, for example, is fitted here on the 3-key Clarineau at the front and back, as you can see. So, like I said, when we're oiling, we simply make sure not to oil the keys, but only the wood itself, really, actually. So the keys can just stay on the Clarineau as usual while you oil it. And that's it. So it's really super easy and super quick, honestly, indeed. One quick note. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again because it's really, really important to oil the tap valve. So here's the area where the mouthpiece goes in later. It's actually really, really important. Because if that's not properly oiled, cracks can form in the body, which of course really wouldn't be great. Also, we want to stop water from building up, so please make sure you really, really thoroughly oil the tenon core very well indeed. You saw a close-up earlier, so there's absolutely no way anything can go wrong there. Just a quick reminder, also please make sure to leave the Clarineau open for a few hours after you oil it so it can dry properly before you play it again. I was really glad you tuned in again. If you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. And feel free to share the video with someone who might need to oil their Clarineau again. That's it from me for today. I'd really love to see you again in the next video. And other than that, I'd say, on your marks, get set, and oil.